How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I am your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. Today, we are going to be talking about some interesting topics from earlier in the month when Mr. 45 decided to start talking about what if we had a lawless town. So I thought that it would be a great time for us to get in there and have a particular chit chat about what if we actually did have a lawless town? Because I know that the statement that was made on TV was, if we had one day without laws, that um, everybody would regret it. We also had the other statement that followed that made the claim that, if there was just one really hard hour, that people would change their minds about their opinions and expectations when it comes to potentially law enforcement. I strongly disagree that while I understand that the concepts from back in the day when we had the idea of what if that movie, The Purge, was a real thing, if anybody ever had that follow them into the government scenario, you would see that, oh man, the the people would behave differently. Now, truth, I strongly believe that a lot of it would be similar to the way it was when we seen the first Purge movie, is that people would spend more time entertaining themselves because they have no responsibility, no accountability. They wouldn't be breaking neck to try to go to work or anything like that. They would literally just be like partying and have a good time. Now, I understand that with the lack of accountability in a scenario where there was no real consequences for one's actions, that there would be individuals that would potentially decide to dive in and start doing some things they ain't got no business doing. So I see a lot of the times I'm like, oh man, what would happen if there was an actual scenario where there was a purge, and that was like legit the thing to do, a whole day or half a day of like no consequences for one's actions. What do you think you would get into? Me, I see myself, like I said before, kicking back and minding my own business. Now, granted, I know that there are some people that's like, oh, there's a few select people that I would have a conversation with. I'd have a stern conversation with a few select people because, there's no consequences for those actions. There are some people who would solve their problems. Well, if they're not getting the solution that they're looking for, they might make their own solutions. But if we had a whole day where we wasn't getting pulled over for the wrong thing, we didn't have the Big Brother program scanning our license plates and tracking our whereabouts, we we would just be minding our own. And truth, I feel like that would be a much better, much more enjoyable scenario. Now, I also know that if something like that did go into effect, you also have the understanding that vigilante behavior would occur. And even though most of us are somewhat civilized, there are a lot of individuals that would have absolutely no problem with breaking the laws that currently exist. So if there was laws to be broken that had no consequences to them, they would probably break a whole lot more or do a whole lot more unethical or immoral behavior, since it's no longer considered illegal. So, interesting question. What do you guys think that you would end up trying to accomplish if you had one whole day with no consequences? Because when he made that statement that, one really hard hour, like a lawless town, a lawless country, what do you think you would do? Because I could see myself flying a private jet without a pilot's license. I could really see chaos mode from GTA 5 happening in real life if something like that was to go down. I could really see like more of it these YNs that are riding around here doing stuff that they got no business doing. I would see well, you'd see less people going to jail, which might be an improvement, but you might see a lot of them getting out. Which here's a question, and this is a very interesting question. Okay, if you had 12 hours with no consequences, if you were given a criminal sentence, and your criminal sentence required you to serve time, you're in there serving time, and then this lawless day comes, and it is not a crime to let yourself out. Now, the day after the lawless day, do they come after you for the actions that you did? Because technically, if you're supposed to be back serving an X number of months or years, if you had a lawless day in the country and then a convict was released as a result, does that guy get to stay free? That's hey, there goes Lollipop. That's a really interesting question. Can you hear audio? I can hear audio. Oh, you can't hear my audio. I'm not too sure why you can't hear my audio. That seems to be an issue every now and again. I have cranked up the audio on a wide scale. Hold on, let's do this. Let's turn the audio up to 500%. You guys are going to have it external microphones. Let's see if that works. So you guys should be able to hear the microphone now. I've got it at almost 1,000%. Yeah, I've got the equalizers on like full tilt. So the question was, what about you guys in what if we had that lawless town? What would we be getting ourselves into in a lawless town? Because 45 was talking about us, you know, throwing it to the wall and making it do what it do in a lawless town. And I thought about that, and I asked myself, like, I know that there are people who got revenge on their mind. I know that people, they got like, oh, I'm going to achieve now because nothing's holding me back. You know, and I just thought that would just be an interesting concept to talk about, because I mean, we talked about last week about what we thought about the conversation that Camila had about her, you know, pro-female thing. And Lollipop, since you're here, I actually can ask you this question, because last week I had asked, and we didn't really have any ladies to really answer, because like 85% of the podcast are men. So like, men don't know what women think. Men just know what they expect from women that they're not getting. So I asked the ladies, you know, why is it like this lady said last week, or yeah, actually it was last week. She said, you know, she was like, the ladies are supposed to stick together and all of this, in a conversation where they were asking her about family, and they were asking her about like, why doesn't she have her own children when most politicians have a family? When they get into that particular area, there's usually a husband and a wife and a few kids. It's always been that way. It's not a requirement, but it's always been that way. The traditional family, the nuclear family idea. And she's like the first individual, regardless of being male or female, to get into that position and doesn't have her own biological children. She's got a husband, but she's got stepkids, you know, and they was asking her about that. She was talking about, you know, how she feels loved from the family that she has, even though it's an unorthodox family. And then she starts talking about how the women are supposed to like back each other up and promote each other and whoop, 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 whoop. And I was like, wait, this is the same person that's saying, you know, oh, you know, more choices for women when it comes down to having kids, but you're taking away a man's right to have an opinion on that situation if he's for actually getting the child. And I was like, why do women exclude the rest of the family and the relationship? It's always like all the women are supposed to stick together, like you're still protesting something that no longer exists. But never do we see a woman say, you know, we should start supporting our family, we should start backing up our men, we should start pushing for instead of pushing for the ideology of equality, where we're demanding more from a scenario where we've already been past women are equal to men, and now women are superior to men in some scenarios, and women are still saying, oh, but we're entitled to even more to be considered equal. I mean, there was only so much that you really could get, because over the past 200 years, you've taken all of the men's style of dress, the men's occupations, the men's status, the men's gender roles. There's literally nothing left to take besides the men's riches, and still saying that, you know, we're supposed to boost each other up even more. And I was disappointed, because if I'm gonna follow the lead of somebody with that type of ideology, I was wondering, like, why did she not say, because this was a conversation about family? No, they're not. They're definitely not. So she says, y'all, that women are not equal to men in our society, and they are not. And but they are not inferior to men from the perspective of the ability to receive resources. But the expectations for all of the responsibility to be on the men. The fact is that if a woman is going to get a man that is above her to up her status so that she can feel valued by that man, she's not going to be on an equal plane. So even if you do have men that are equal to you, the question is, like, why is it that you're going to find somebody that's above your level to call him your equal, but the people that are on your level that can do for you what you can do for yourself, they're not valuable to you? But you know, a woman making 100, 200, 300 a year feels like, oh, he must make the same amount of money as me or more. Everybody that makes less than her is inferior. But a man can't say, oh, no, ma'am, you've got to make the same amount of money as me in order for you to talk to me. A man can take you homeless. A man can take you unemployed. A man can take you living in the basement in your grandmama house with 3 kids and take care of all of those kids, take all of your responsibilities. But a man can't get a female to say, oh, I'll do that for you. A woman won't take a man off the street and make him a millionaire. But a woman can marry a man that is a millionaire and become a millionaire. So I'm trying to figure out what was that. Oh, the question that was asked to her was, why does she not have children, was a question that they asked her. And she went from, she kind of pulled a Biden. She went from talking about how she's satisfied with having stepkids and she doesn't need to bear children of her own. She feels loved with her whole family, to, she went in a direction of we're all women, we're supposed to stick together, pro women, let's get this thing to I was confused by it, because it was a segment that was supposed to be about family, and this person is supposed to be talking about family, and she went from talking about family to being like pro women. I understand pro-choice. I'm not objective to pro-choice. I'm just objective to one side of pro-choice, because when you start talking about pro-choice, but you're taking my right to have a choice out of your pro-choice, I don't think that's fair. I think that when you start talking about pro-choice, yeah, you should have the right whether or not you want to keep it. But if I want to keep it, you should have it and give it to me and make it my responsibility. But if I don't want it, or if I'm not available and you don't want it, there's nobody there to object to it. But if I want it and you don't want it because it's your body, you can get rid of it. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right at all. We both put half on that. So why do you have total control over whether or not it survives? I don't agree with that. But that's what she's pushing for. She's pushing for more individualistic control, because it is your body to be able to do something with, but it's my DNA as well as yours. So if I want one and then I find out that you have it and it's mine, you can get rid of it and there's nothing I can do about it. But if you decided, like, there's some people out there that could take some out of a trash can and turn it inside out and utilize it to fertilize in unexpected, unwanted scenario where the guy doesn't want it, and that woman could put the guy on child support, though. And I was like, why is that the case? If you've got total control over whether or not it happens, you should have total financial responsibility. And then, in that conversation, she's still like having this train of thought of, women stick together, pro-life, women stick together. And I forgot to ask the question in a way that it could be understood. I'm like, where's the equality in the family? Where's like pro support the family? Where's pro family stick together? Where's pro, protect and provide for the kids and protect and provide for the husband? But she didn't do that. She didn't have that perspective. And most women do not speak that speak. Most women do not speak, I'm gonna support my family and I'm gonna protect my man. That's a little bit, it's a little bit broken. She said, you're not going to like my take on it. It's not half and half, of course, because I mean, nothing is ever balanced with women. She says women are the ones whose body have to go through everything, potentially die, right? And if something has the ability to kill me, only I can make right. So that's the concept. So in the perspective that your life is in jeopardy for the success, and to save you, we have to lose the child, then that's a medical decision. In the situation where individuals were victims and now they're stuck with this, I didn't say that her stance was anti-family. I said that her stance was not supporting the whole family universally. I said that it was not. I didn't say that she was anti-family. I didn't say that she was like against having family. She's pro family, pro 2024 family, like Brady Bunch, build your own family kind of situation. But she still stood on that, women stick together thing, as opposed to, as women, we need to start supporting our families as a whole and protecting and providing and supporting our men and building our men up to being more successful men the way they used to be in the 60s and 70s, instead of saying, isolating the, pro women back women up thing. Because women should boost other women up. Women should be more support towards women, but men are going to be moral support to women. But no women are saying, oh, we should empower our men to be better men. We should find better ways to help our men become more successful men. We should find our men that have potential to be something, that are down and out, and push them to be better men. No woman ever says that. The woman only says, I can do it all by myself, and I'm going to support my sisters so we can all be Miss Independent. But family is not independence. Family is codependency. So technically, anybody who says I can do it all by myself and I don't need you, that's kind of not pro-family, because a family is like a tribe. A family is like a pack, and everyone works together. Everybody depends on each other. So it's not necessarily pro-family when you're individualistic. It's just like not being a team player when you're a ball hog, because you're not supporting the team. You're not providing defense for your other partners. You're getting the ball, you're going for the score yourself. You're not actually backing up your other players and making sure that they get points on the board so that their contracts stay up. You're not, like, for example, when Drew Brees took a pay cut to improve the roster. If you're going to be the most highest paid person in your position, you're damaging the rest of your team because you're not sharing the wealth. That's what I'm talking about here. I'm not saying that she hates family. I'm just saying that she didn't promote that. She promoted individually, like women should back women up, but no woman ever says in the history of the United States that women should do more for their men and make sure that their men are well taken care of. That's what we were talking about. So she said, I'd have to see the full clip to make a conclusion, but it sounds like the question started with, why doesn't she have biological kids? And her response to the fact that the question was asked in the first place, it's a ridiculous question. So I think she was leaning into women's rights perspective. You are exactly right, of not being reduced down to their ability and willingness to birth children. You are exactly right. That was the way that she did that, but I was disappointed with how she did that. What's going on, Brad? I see you, buddy. I see you in there. I am disappointed the way she went down that road, because it would have been a fair enough question that if I was running for president and I had a wife and a stepchild, I would be the first male candidate that didn't have biological children. And somebody asked me that question, no one would say that I'm being demeaned as a man to being the creator of children. It would just be a fair question. But when you throw gender into the mix, women define themselves. And then after the women define themselves, they want to undefine themselves. Because in order for you to just recognize that if she was selected, she would be the first person, not the first woman. She would be the first person in the history of this position to not have a nuclear family where everyone has the same genetic code. So it's not like she's being reduced to being less significant because she's female. This is the first time that anyone has gone after this position without having their own husband and wife and 2 children that belongs to both the husband and wife biologically. The same way, this is the first time we had a generation where a woman is bound to make it because Hillary didn't get far enough. And when we had Obama, the first one that was had a good tan, that there was never a situation where as soon as something different happens, everyone asks questions. But women like to really break the question down too much. But I didn't like the fact that she redirected it from, why are you asking me about nuclear family, pro-life, pro-life, pro-life? And I thought that that was the wrong direction to have, because I believe in my mind that she should have said, instead of focusing on the fact that the children aren't mine, focus on the fact that I am a generation of women that are willing to take care of single dads and their children. I think that would have been a more appropriate position to come from, because since those were his kids, that would be one of very few women that actually date men with children. And then that also goes about pointing out another thing, that she should have been able to promote the fact that he was a single dad when I met him. And that goes to show that we have a country full of men that are willing to take care of the children now, where 40, 50 years ago, we didn't have any men out there trying to take care of their children that wasn't in jail for doing something they had no business doing. She didn't talk about any of those angles. She went straight towards women's rights. But the women's rights take rights away from somebody else. So when you say, well, it's your body and the situation could potentially cause you self-harm. True. But you also have to recognize that while it's your body and the situation could potentially cause you self-harm, you chose to put yourself in that situation. Now that you're in that situation, the consequences of that situation is for you to produce the child. And then you're going to be against producing the child because you want to be able to do your own thing. Not you personally, but a lot of women that do this, that are not doing this for a health choice. They're just doing this because they don't want the child itself, or they don't want the responsibility itself. They're just doing this to get rid of the obligation. They're not doing it because it's danger to their health. And that's what I'm objecting to. If there is somebody that does want it, whether it's the father, whether it's an adoption agency, why not have it and give it to somebody who wants it, instead of stopping a potential opportunity for something great? Now, if it is against your health, then yeah, protect your health. If it was a circumstance of assault, then yeah, those are circumstances. But I'm not talking about the circumstance where you have to live with your attacker's fetus. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, this person, you guys probably been dating for a while. You weren't using enough protection. You're popping out something, but you want to get rid of it and he doesn't. He wants it. You're going to get rid of it, even though he wants it, because it's your right to choose, but he doesn't have a choice. So your relationship is going to be destroyed now, and you're just going to move on and go get into another relationship with someone else. But the fact is that that's the heart of the issue, is that she wasn't promoting family, and she was not promoting the laws in a way where it benefits the safety of women. It just isolated women to having more say over a situation, because just because the territory of this is inside of you does not change the fact that 50% of that genetic code is the dad. So 50% of that fetus is the dad. Now, women are not going to say, when you start talking about getting the divorce, that because you're living in the man's house, that because it's primarily his stuff, that he can sell it all and keep all of his money and not give you $1. No, you've got to break him off, or he's got to break you off on half of everything he's got, even though it was all his stuff before you got there, and it's all his stuff now that you're leaving. You have to tear down his entire empire and break you off on half of it, because that's an entitlement. But because it's yours, a man can't do the same. A man can't say, oh, well, I want this. You don't have to want it. I'll take it. I'll pay 100% for it. I don't even have to talk to you. Notice that single fathers, there are no benefits for single fathers. If a single father can't afford to pay for a kid, he goes to jail. If a single mother can't afford to pay for a kid, she's got all these government benefits. The government benefits don't apply to single fathers. Single fathers get the government benefit advanced to them in the beginning of the year, and then add it to their taxes owed at the end of the year. There are no benefits for men. There are none. So if a man says, I want that responsibility, give me that responsibility, that man's paying full price. If a woman says, I want that responsibility, give me that responsibility, a woman gets a second paycheck. because the government is going to give you the money and hold the debt for the father whenever the father is found, and then put the father in jail until the child is grown, trying to get back payment with interest for non-child support payments. But the woman is not going to have to pay taxes on that kid. The woman claims the kid on her taxes, and then she gets back extra money from the government because she has the kid. The man is not going to get extra money from the government because he's got that kid, especially if he got benefits throughout the year because of that kid. He's got to pay extra taxes on the benefits that he got for that kid. That's how the laws work. So when you say, well, it's your body and it's not fair that a man chooses whether or not you have it, I agree that a man cannot force you to get rid of it. So I'm still on the same playing field, that I don't believe any one person should force someone else to get rid of something that only has a chance of survival if you don't kill it. But I am going to say that if one of the two of them wants it, it should not be terminated. And there should not be a law that says that if one person wants it, that it can be terminated. That's what I said. I didn't agree with that part. So she said, I truly don't think society would care if you didn't have children. Your wife would be questioned, but I don't think you would be as a man. No, men are not going to be questioned. I would be questioned about my family lifestyle, because all minority men are questioned about everything under the sun. You become a successful minority, the first thing they're going to ask you is, how did you get there? Because they don't expect you to make it where people with good tans don't belong, according to some people. But at the end of the day, if I was the first one to be in the presidency with no kids, first question they're going to ask me is, do you have kids? And if I say no, why not? They're going to ask me, why don't I have any kids? If I'm married, why don't I have any kids? It's not a written requirement to be in that position, but it is an expectation for you to have a family, to represent the family ideology of this country. So when you walk in there as a single man trying to get into that particular position, they're going to ask you, well, do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a wife? Are you planning on getting married soon? Is there anybody of interest around you, kind of thing? Look back into history now. Out of all the men that have sat in that position, every last one of them was married. I can't think of one that wasn't married. And as far back as I can remember, all of them had at least one kid. And so the first time one generation, a 4-year term comes up, and that person doesn't have their own biological children, somebody's going to ask, why didn't you give birth? It's a fair question, but because she's a woman, it's offensive. Now she says, not that it's right or wrong. It's just the state of where society is right now. It's the state of where the society has always been. This society has always been so biased about every little detail. That is why there is so much unrecognized segregation in every area of society. You have segregation amongst gender. You have segregation amongst race. You have segregation amongst social class. You have segregation amongst financial status, job status, educational status. There's so much of it. We're divided so much to claim that we're such a united country, to the fact that it makes absolutely no sense why we would title ourselves united. Because if there's anything about us that makes us different from someone else, instead of us being praised for being individuals, we are condemned and questioned for being different. We break the stereotypical norms, and then we are ostracized in a lot of situations when people don't like change. And then those people who don't like change are going to be very, very combative, to the magnitude of the church in Texas, the Walmart where that couple got knocked off, stuff to that effect. That's going to be just riots on riots for unjustifiable reasons, because it's not like these figureheads are really destroying our country. So 99% of the working class that's doing a good job of ruining things for everybody. And then the select few, I think it's 10 or 15% that is supposed to be making up our law enforcement, that's not making positive decisions, that's making the rest of it worse. So we're not really putting it all on one individual, but it's just the principle of the fact that we're not okay with anything that is different. But that's one of the reasons why we have these gender inequality conversations on the show. And when we have these gender inequality conversations on the show, we typically branch out towards why is it not the same when the expectations are supposed to be the same? Because if men were ideally expected to be considered equal to women, then why do men not have the same responsibilities as women? Or why do the women not have the same responsibilities or held to uphold those or be responsible for or be accountable for those responsibilities of the same magnitude as men? Because as it stands right now, like as you said, women and men are not equal. I mean, and if men and women are not equal, would you be willing to say that women are inferior to men? Or would you believe that, women are more superior than men? Because I believe that financially women have more financial obligation or financial opportunities to be more successful than men. But the lack of balance between the two with regards to gender roles and responsibilities and sociological expectations, that the more fragile and delicate one is sociologically expected to be female, and being able to fall back on those feminine roles of being kept allows women to adapt to recognizing a submissive position. They don't want that. They want to be assertive. They want to be the leader. But if we're not equal, then which one do you believe would be the hypothetical superior? Because that's a very interesting concept. Lollipop says, you expect all her answers to be perfect? No, I don't expect her answers to be perfect. Just because she didn't take that opportunity to address what you just said doesn't mean she's against your ideas. She just didn't say it in that moment. In a way, yeah, you're right. But in a way, she's never talked about anything that benefited the other half of her country. So look at what she's promoting right now. She's promoting just women and immigration, which is not Americans, and hidden fees, which means you got to really have money to spend money to be affected by that. That's what she's got going on. She's not giving us a free healthcare system. She's not giving us a free education system. She's not giving us a mandatory $35 an hour thing. I know I seen her say something earlier this past week about giving certain people reparations for their ancestors, which makes absolutely no sense. Because while I agree that to a degree, the first 2 or 3 generations would have deserved that, but 100-something years down the line, I can't see any of us being able to afford to give 100+ million Americans $1 million. Where is that going to come from? Because it's $1 million each. I'm not saying I wouldn't take it. I'm just saying that's an unrealistic scenario. And then if you're pulling it out of tax dollars, if you're not going to tax these Americans for receiving that as an income, if it's going to be a reimbursement of a debt, not an income, so it's non-taxable money, then that million some odd that she's claiming that she's going to give every minority American is going to offset your poverty line. Because while we are the minority in authority, we are the majority in the lower income standard. So if you give probably 70% of the American population $1.5 or $1.6 million a piece, just because their ancestor was part of the trade, you're going to really get rid of the poverty level and increase middle class, where you will have upper and middle class, no lower class. Well, you might have some lower class, they just won't be minorities. And then you're going to have a big boom in inflation, because people with no money don't know how to save money, which is going to put them in a position where they're going to spend a bunch of money, which is going to have everything overpriced. And then nobody's going to have enough money, because that $1.5 or $1.6 million will last you for a year. last you for a week if you don't spend it right, if you don't invest it correctly. So, I mean, I understand where she's coming from, but she hasn't done anything for the rest of the group. At least the people on the other side of the fence, where I do not agree with nothing that they're talking about doing. At least they're saying, well, we're going to get rid of everybody that wasn't born here. We're going to get rid of everything that wasn't usually accepted to be as normal. We're going to get rid of everything that was usually considered derogatory. We're going to go ahead and everybody who has a business is not going to have to pay anything. And everybody who doesn't have a business is probably going to be paying for all the debt in the country. It was just straight across the board. It was just straight across the board. It wasn't just, oh, we're going to do something for the men. It wasn't just, oh, we're going to do something for the minorities. It was just straight across the board. We're not showing nobody no favoritism except the rich. The rich are going to get richer. The poor are going to get poorer. And then half of the population that is claiming anything that has been deemed socially unacceptable by conservative standards are all going to be outlawed. And then everybody who doesn't have a U.S. citizenship is going to get put on a bus and shipped to the nearest set of land on the other side of the wall, all at the same time. But yeah, I didn't like the fact that what sparked my mentality was that she did not have she has never had, and women usually don't have this position that, you know, we should do more for each other. Now, on this podcast, I've always, no matter which side of the fence you think I argue for, I've always come from uniformity. So I always say that from the side of the men, that the women should treat the men better, and from the side of the women, that the men should behave better, but the men are supposed to have a higher standard to meet in order to qualify for the woman's attention. And then once the man meets that woman's attention, the woman doesn't have to meet that man's expectations. And that's off-putting. And then at the end of the day, we have men teaching men to meet the standards of women, find out what the woman wants, be that. Find out what the average woman expects to have, do that. Make yourself financially successful, because women want a financially successful man. But women are taught Miss Independent, take care of yourself, do for yourself, every woman for himself, hierarchy, and then I don't need no man. Men are worthless if they don't pay all my bills. And then they come back and say, oh, but, you know, women are required to have equal authority. But yet I have yet to hear a woman say, oh man, we should as $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 women, we should go and take good care of our men. We should take our men by their bootstraps and lift them up and bring them up to us. If we're Fortune 500 women, we should hire men and teach them how to do what we do and make them better men, so that those men can be better status men for the women that are looking for good men. You know, the no woman is saying, oh, we should do an entrepreneur situation where we're helping men become better. The women are just saying, get it on our own, go assess the girl. And I was just like, when is that mentality going to change? Because on both sides of the fence, you've got the men are saying that they want to be treated better, but the men are not saying, you know, treat the women worse. The men are just saying, cut them off if they're not going to respect you. The men are still meeting the expectation of women and then giving the women the opportunity to fail the man. The women are not saying, man, look, it's a new generation, 2024. We didn't already been through the era of independence. We can be as successful as we want to be or as we choose to be. And as successful independent women, as leaders, we need to lead our males into being more successful from childhood, since a lot of the women are getting custody of the kids. Even though sometimes men can do a better job than women, we should see a lot more women saying, you know, treat your man better. Be a partner to your boyfriend, be a partner to your husband, and then teach the young boys to treat the women with respect and treat the women with kindness and grace, instead of just forcing the men into submission. I don't understand why modern relationships in 2024 are women forcing men into submission. And a lot of women are doing it by manipulating the man from depriving him of physical or emotional affection. But or ruthless aggression, as you see some of these women snatching men by their collar and everything like that. But you don't see men snatching women like that to get respect. you don't see men snatching. What Chris Brown does it, but I mean, like him and Quavo are like the select few. But y'all want that kind of man because he's a millionaire. So I'm still trying to figure out, like, how come it's okay for Chris Brown to punch like 20 girls in the face and they still keep running up behind him, but the average man that's making like 50, 60, 70,000 a year, like, he ain't worthy, and he would otherwise worship the ground that she walks on. Lollipop says, I don't think anyone should be superior to anyone else. Different groups have their strengths and weaknesses, requiring us to work together. Now, that's what you think, but you also said earlier, women are not equal to men. So my question is that while women are not equal to men, my question was, which one is superior to the other one? Because if they're not equal, one has a higher status than the other. The same as the difference between an Android and an iPhone, one is more valued than the other. Even if it's subjectively from your perspective, from your individual perspective, which one do you believe is more superior than the other? Because the truth is that while I understand that women are excessively valuable, I understand that half of a successful relationship comes from a well-rounded woman that is able to motivate and inspire and perform towards success. The other half of that is a well-driven man that is able to perform towards success. In fact, two $40,000 a year incomes can come together and build an empire. Because if you're living a $50,000 or $60,000 a year lifestyle, you got a $20,000 or $30,000 a year surplus. Because if y'all pool y'all money together, two people making $40,000 a year as janitors in a Waffle House and a Wendy's can put their money together and put away $20,000, $30,000 a year, where one person putting away $500 a year for 30 years would make a couple $1 million. Two people putting away a total of $20,000 a year could make that $1 million inside of 5 to 10 years. So, the ideology when men get frustrated with women, a woman wants her hair did, her nails did, all this other stuff. And this is between $500 and $2,500 a month worth of upkeep for some women. And that $2,500 a month worth of upkeep could be invested in stocks and bonds and real estate. The woman wants a $25,000, $30,000 engagement ring, and that $25,000, $30,000 engagement ring could be a Bitcoin. When Bitcoin was $20,000, now it's $72,000. So if your engagement ring was a Bitcoin from 2023, your Bitcoin would be worth $73,000 right now. Your engagement ring would be worth $73,000 right now. You could cash out on your wedding ring right now and have 4.5 times or 3.5 times more the value of what your ring was last year. But if he goes and gets you that ring from Zales to make you feel special, the ring is worth less than half of the sticker price when you put it on your finger and walk out the store with it. And then with oxidation and deterioration, the weight of the value of that ring plus the quantity of pure gold that's in the ring, because the silver is worthless because they're using sterling silver, not actual silver. The value of that ring is not going to be nearly half of, so that $35,000 ring might be worth $15,000, $20,000. Pawn shop is only going to give you $5,000 for it. So the man spent $35,000 on it. You might be able to pawn it and get $5,000 or $10,000 for it, and that's all you're going to get off of it. So you just threw away $20,000 to get a piece of metal and a rock. But when we start talking about the value, the true value of women, if a woman that knew about stocks, bonds, and real estate investments, Bitcoin, and got with a man that knew about stocks, bonds, real estate investment, and Bitcoin, and they pooled their money together, they would be a successful family, regardless of which one financially made more money. But women are not looking at a man that is making $30,000 a year, $35,000 a year, where him and her pull their money together, where she's making $35,000, $40,000, he's making $35,000, $40,000, they're making $82,000, living on a $55,000 a year lifestyle, where they're putting away $15,000 a year. Emergency fund is 6 months worth of money. If you could put away 22 or 30,000 in 2 years, where you've got emergency money in case a natural disaster happens, like the one that happened in Florida, you guys got fallback money. But for some reason, we're not seeing those types of women. When men ask a woman, what does she bring to the table? Outside of she's attractive and she's got a positive attitude, there aren't any criteria there. Women say, oh, well, I'm successful, but she's not willing to share her money with her man. She's not willing to give him her whole paycheck, but these same women are expecting men to give her his whole paycheck. If they get married and they're going to get a divorce, the woman's going to take half of the man's estate. The woman is not going to leave half of her estate with the man. So it's still, when I say that there is an imbalance there, the imbalance doesn't favor the men, but the one that is coming up is the woman. And if the woman is coming up, in order for a woman to come up to get with a man, or because she got with the man, that means that the man had to be above her for her to come up, which means that she would be beneath him. The one that she chose, not all men. She chose a man that was above her, because men are forced to date down. That's the hypergamy theory. But she said, regarding reparations, you should read Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. I truly think you'd find it interesting. Post-traumatic slave syndrome, post-traumatic slave syndrome is a very interesting topic. And unfortunately, even with post-traumatic slave syndrome, we still have self-oppression. We still have self-traumatizing behavior. We have individuals right now in our society that either intentionally or unintentionally knock ourselves back down. We have this term called crabs in a bucket, where people prefer to be at the bottom of the barrel. And then when somebody starts coming up out of that oppression, they end up battling against a person who is not willing to come out of that oppression. Even with the less seen divides that hold people down and hold people back, to the magnitude that even affirmative action laws are starting to be overturned. And you're looking at the fact that you no longer can get certain business loans just because of the color of your skin. You got to actually have a business plan. But likewise, you have reverse racism, because when something is done too much, it starts happening in the reverse. So like the lack of equality between women and men in the 1920s was fought so hard that equality shifted, the inequality shifted, and now men are with less resources than women. And expectedly, the men are still traditionally required to funnel all their resources to the women. When we look at the segregation and the minorities being down, the affirmative action pushed for minorities to be on an equal footing to everyone else. After they pass that equal footing, now a minority that doesn't qualify can get something over somebody who does. When they have the equal opportunity to go to college, they might not have the equal family income to go to college, but they have the equal opportunity to go to college. They have the equal acceptance rate. They have the equal ability to get out of college. They have the equal ability to not get a job after college. They have the equal ability to have debt after college. They have the equal ability to start up a business. and they have the equal ability to run that business, but they still believe that they should be picked first. I believe that you shouldn't be left out. I don't believe that you should be picked first. If you've got a really good business plan, you should be picked first. But I don't believe that you should be just, oh, black guy, let's bring him in. No, that's not okay. I don't think that should be the thing. And it's strange for someone like me to say that, but I was upset with them doing away with the Uncle Ben's rice, the Aunt Jemima syrup. Why are you literally desensitizing the entire? That was a really good bottle of syrup. The rice is a really good bag of rice. Why are you changing something because it makes somebody in 2024 feel uncomfortable when it's a 40, 50 year long product? You're destroying history to try to say, oh, well, we're going to get rid of. You can't get rid of the sexist behavior in this country. You can't get rid of the racism in this country. You can't get rid of the social oppression in this country. You can't just change a few names, take down a few statues, and then say it's all good. That's not how it works. And then one of the reasons why I keep asking the ladies these questions is, you know, when even when I ask you, which one do you believe is inferior to the other one? You even provided me with a second or third vague question here. Equality and superiority are different. So in society, men are seen as superior. I didn't ask you what society said. You said men and women are not equal. And I asked you which one got more. Since you don't like the word superior, which one got more? Because ideally, society would dictate, because men have more resources in their possession than women. Women have more opportunity to gain more resources than men. Women have more opportunities for success than men. That's where the oppression comes from. The women are demanding the men to be more successful than the women without having the equal ability to be successful. Women have a handicap of success. Because while affirmative action will stop a black man from being hired over a white man, you still have the women's liberation laws that requires there be a certain number of women in upper management. So while I have to overqualify to get picked, you just got to be sitting in a room with me and they don't have enough women on payroll and you'll get picked, because that law has not been changed. It's just I can't get picked because I'm black, but you can get picked because you're a woman. So as a man, if we were both aiming for the same middle management position, if they didn't have enough women in middle management, you would get the job. The only thing that I would get the job over you is if I was just that much more overqualified than you and you were just that much underqualified, that they would have to spend way more resources teaching you how to do the job. That would be the only reason why I would get picked over you. But if it was reasonably, we were about what and what, if there was very little difference between you and I might have a little bit more experience than you, but you might have a degree that I don't have in that particular field, where we're kind of what and what, experience over education, they pick you because they need a female. So when I asked you your personal observation, because you didn't say society says that we're not equal, you said specifically, and I could pull it up right here. You said specifically, let's go back up. wait. Women are not equal to men in our society. So since they are not equal to men, which one's got more? Can you help me out with that? So she went on to say, I have to go read my book before I go to bed. Have a good night on the street. Well, I mean, if you want to dodge the question, I mean, I don't mind. By all means, you can check back in whenever you feel like it. But truth be told, you know, it's not that hard to say. Even if I believe that I'm correct about the scenario. Even if you believe that, you know, I'm more than enough accurate with my assessment that men retained more resources and women have more opportunity to gain more resources, and the reason why they're not equal is because women has in their possession less resources than men, and women expect men to have more resources than women in order for those men to be compatible to those women. Which also means that if a woman has more resources than a man, then that woman would deem that man is unworthy. If you can say that that's a fair enough assessment, hey, read your book. She said, your analysis lacks intersectionality between race and gender. Statistically, white women actually gain the most from affirmative action. Ma'am, women gain more than men from affirmative action. And minority men have less, because the affirmative action laws that requires you to gain from the color of your skin, from your nationality and your race are being abolished. But the laws that exist about you getting a push up the corporate ladder because of your gender has not been abolished. So my analysis is not lacking. What I'm doing is I am taking race out of the equation and saying, well, you're not inferior to me because of the color of your skin. You're just different. I'm saying that you in equality do not have any less rights than I do, which means that you do not have any less responsibility than I do, which means that you have the same equal opportunity and ability and should maintain the same expectation to get somebody that makes less money than you and start a happy family. The same way men are expected to get a woman that has less money and less resources than him to start a happy family. That's what I'm saying. Because I just told you from the brokest level, because you got to understand that in the United States, a welfare system stops at $30,000 a year. So I said, two people with $35,000 a year make $70,000 a year together, and the median average of a two couple income is $72,000 a year, which means that either both of them makes $31,000 a year, or one makes 32, the other one makes 30, one makes 35, one makes 28. The average, or not the average, the median is approximately 72,000, which means that there are not that many couples that are pairing up talking about some $100,000 across the board. You make 50, I make 50. We're going to make this together. We're 100. There ain't that many of them out there. You average statistically, women are making 48, between 42 before 55 and 48 after 55. That's the median average as of 2024. And the men are making 52 and ending up at about 55. That's the median average for minorities. Okay. Now, about 73% of men are making less than 100 grand, and about 34 of them are making less than 60 or 70 grand. Working class is now set about 69, 72,000 because they're expecting the working class to make $1,650 a week. And if you remember back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the working class were the poor folk. So the poverty line is working class. If working class is making $1,650 a week, the poverty line is $1,650 a week because of inflation. If you're not making $1,650 a week, you are technically poor in America. Okay. Now, with that being said, women want men to make 100 grand. I can rationalize your desire. I can rationalize that. And the reason why I can rationalize that is that if living comfortably for one person is $68,000 a year, you're going to add $10,000 to $15,000 for another adult in there if you're sharing some resources, but you're going to double down on food and you might double down on transportation. So you went from $68,000 living comfortably to about 84 or 92,000 just for two adults living comfortably. That's not the struggle. And then if you throw two kids in the mix, you're at $120,000, $140,000 living comfortable. Now, if you're pinching pennies and you're doing the bare minimum, you might be able to make that work on $50,000. You might be able to have a two-family household at $60,000. You might be able to have a two adults and two kids at $85,000. But there's going to be some government assistance involved because kids cost $15,000 to $20,000 per kid. So if you're looking at a $68,000 a year income for an adult plus 15 grand per child plus the cost of a second adult, it makes sense for you to ask for a $100,000 a year relationship. But it doesn't make sense for you to ask for the $100,000 to come from the man when you can make $50,000 as a teacher and I can make $75,000 working night shift at a Waffle House. I can make $65,000 as a shift manager at a McDonald's. You can make $55,000 a year as a nurse in a hospital. I can make $120,000 a year as a garbage truck driver. I can make $60,000 a year as a public bus driver. Heartline, those public transportation guys, I can make $65,000 a year as a bus driver. Okay. Uber drivers are making like 50 grand a year just driving their personal car around all day long. Okay, so women can actually get a man that makes less than $100,000 a year. They can come together with those men and make a $100,000 a year relationship. But they prefer for the man to bring 100% of it to the table. And you're not even willing to say, well, you know, the way things are these days, that some of these women, even if you're not one of those women, some of these women are just too goddamn greedy and they asking too much of the men. They're not even willing to reciprocate what they're demanding. The women that are expecting men to bring 100,000 a year to the table ain't bringing in 100,000 a year. They're not talking about how the expectations of men are so high, which is what make the men superior. You said, I would argue most couples are doing that. No, they're not. Women asking men to make everything and not work is so incredibly rare today. No, that is actually the norm. The expectation of women is that men fit the bill. You have a small select quantity of women that are expecting 50-50 from the magnitude that she is not required to pay more than half. But you also have the majority of the women in today's society that are sitting there saying that it's the man's responsibility to cater to the woman. Even from the first date, the man's paying for the first date unless we're going Dutch. The man's paying for every date after that unless we're going Dutch. Women are not going half on their engagement ring. Women are not going half on their wedding. Women are not going half on their honeymoon. Majority of the things that are bought as alleged gifts are for the woman, because if he don't buy me shit, he don't love me. You got those types of women out here. And then you also have the fact that if a man cannot give you the lifestyle that you want, not different from him being able to do what you can do for yourself, the lifestyle that you want, if he can't give you that, he's not worthy. Women are not saying, oh, well, you know, this guy is you know, working at a cashier's position in a Ross outlet store. You know, he's got a stable job. He's been doing it for 10 years. He's a stable man. All of his bills are paid. You know, he owns his car. It ain't a brand new car, but he owns his car. You know, he doesn't own his own house, but he's been living in the same 2-bedroom apartment for the past 10 years. He's stable. No woman's going to look at that $30,000, $35,000 a year man and say, I could build him up. No, they're going to say, fuck that. He's broke. I want my nails did. I want my hair did. As soon as a woman says that a man is supposed to pay for a woman's upkeep, you're not talking about that couples are talking about sharing this. And if couples were talking about sharing shit, then you would not have a poverty line. Because you got to remember, back in the day when women didn't have jobs, men used to work and bring the money back to the house and give it to the woman, and the woman would balance the budget. And then if there wasn't enough, she would tell the man that there's not enough. And then he would have to go out and get the rest. If the man wanted to buy something that wasn't in the budget, he would come back and tell his wife that he wants to buy something that's not in the budget. She would tell him that there ain't enough money there for that. He would keep giving her money. She would balance the budget and try to make there be enough money for that. Just like the low income families are trying to get Christmas presents for the kids. You're going to take a little bit of money out of dad's check every week until it gets close to Christmas time. Then you're going to take the Christmas fund and go buy Christmas gifts for the kids. You're going to take that school supply fund and go buy the school supplies and school clothes for the kids. But the man used to give his money back to the woman back in those days when women didn't work. In today's society, no woman would say, I would give my whole paycheck to my man and let him handle the money. I would go to work every day, come back and give my man my paycheck and not ask him no questions about it. He's just going to take care of all the bills. He's going to make sure everything's taken care of. No woman is going to say that. And then very few women know about stocks and bonds and real estate and REITs and investment portfolios and trusts and Bitcoin. And you got some women that are willing to take $100 over a Bitcoin right now today. Why would you take $100 over a Bitcoin? Because it's $100 cash. Because they don't know what a Bitcoin is. They don't know what cryptocurrency is. When the U.S. has been talking about leaning towards digital currency for the last 5 years, they don't know about the future of money. They just know about how to spend it right now. Very few women, if a man in today's society gave a woman his whole paycheck, she would say thank you, buy her a nice outfit, buy her a nice purse, get her hair and nails did, put on some eyelashes, maybe get her some new makeup, pay her bills. But would she, if he did not give her instructions to take that money and pay for something for him, if he just handed her a stack of cash, she would say thank you and spend it. She wouldn't save it. She wouldn't invest it. She would just buy herself a bunch of stuff. That's why low-income couples are not successful. So no, the women and men are not in a scenario where they're working together more often than not. There are a few good women out there that are working with women. There are a few women that are in real estate agents, real estate brokers. They find a man that's in real estate. They come together. They flip houses together. There are some women out there like that. I'm not saying that the women don't exist. I'm saying that they're not. Hold on. She says, I've learned not to talk to you when it comes to your examples of men and women in relationships. It doesn't reflect the men and women I know in real life. It's exhausting to argue with hypocriticals. I hate these generalizations. Well, it's not hypocritical, man. It's not hypocritical. You couldn't show me right now on this live podcast statistics that show me that I am exactly wrong. I have brought statistics to this podcast before to show you that everything that I say is backed by 20 years of data on the shorthand. So if you want me to do a whole podcast just for you to show you the statistical data that really defines exactly what I'm telling you, I can piece it together for you. But that's not going to change your position. That's not going to change your mentality that from what we see is that there are a lot of women that definitely come from left field and don't really want to lean towards the fact that there are some people out there that are not doing hypothetical. Okay, so she's like hypothetical. Okay, so no, me and Beats have been up here talking quite a few times, and Beats has actually supported what I've been saying quite a few times. He was talking about back in the day when him and his wife was working together as a team. He's been married longer than I've been alive, to be real. And he could tell you about long-standing relationships, how to take care of each other in a relationship, how people can be a partner. So yeah, you can say that you don't like the hypotheticals that I put up, and the hypotheticals are not meant to be nice. The hypotheticals are not meant to be your best friend. The hypotheticals are meant to point out the fact that there is an issue that underliningly a lot of us go through. Mr. Beats doesn't have to go through that because he's happily married and him and his wife works together as a team. But the rest of us have to deal with that. And while the rest of us have to deal with that, that doesn't change the fact that you're not going to draw out statistical data that proves that what I'm telling you is incorrect. You just don't like the fact that you don't like my delivery. And I respect that. You don't like the harshness of the lack of compassion, the lack of kindness in my delivery. And I respect that. I'm not supposed to be kind about it. I'm not, from a uniformal perspective, I'm not even coming from morals and ethics. I'm just saying that it ain't balanced, because if the left side of the room has rules and responsibilities that the right side of the room doesn't have, that's not balanced. That's not uniform. If the left side of the room has rules and responsibilities that they have to adhere to, the right side of the room in that exact same room have the exact same rules and responsibilities. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter what your financial income is. It doesn't matter who you know or who your inner circle is. If I've got an answer to it, Beast has got an answer to it, you've got an answer to it. That's uniformity. But when it is subjective, where only me and Beast got to deal with it, but you don't got to deal with it, that's not the same. If only me and you got to deal with it and Beast don't got to deal with it, that's not the same. If Beast is the only one that's got to be impacted by it and me and you are not impacted by it, that's not the same. So when I come and I point out these scenarios, when you tell me, oh, that's not the way it is on a normal basis, you can't show me statistical data that proves that on a normal basis, on a regular, more often than not, that these women do not have a higher expectation for men to fund the majority of things. But Beast can tell you that back in the day, men used to get a whole paycheck to the woman and the woman used to balance a budget. And I can tell you today that if you give a woman your whole paycheck, she'll take it and spend it. She won't save it. She won't invest in it. She might not even get you anything besides lunch. She will take care of herself. So even if you want to say, well, women are not as selfish as you make them out to be, women are not investing in stocks and bonds and real estate in these relationships when you're looking at the low income environment now. So when you say, oh, well, I don't like generalizations, we capped it at the people that are below 100 grand. So that's 76% of the population, 73% of the population. We capped it at the men and women that are below 70,000, 70, 80,000 a year. Men and women. So when you say generalizations, well, the top 1% might not treat each other this way. The middle class is making more than 100,000 a year might not be treating one another this way. But you still have a large group of people in this country that do treat each other this way. Now, you don't like it. I don't like it either. But you can hate the messenger. I don't mind that. This podcast is not about making people feel good. This podcast is about enlightening people. And then after we enlighten people, we tell people, hey, we've got to stand on our non-negotiable expectations for behavior. Hey, Beast, real quick. I actually got the book. I actually got the book right here. I told you I was going to get the book. I actually got the book. And not only do I got the book, I got the guy coming to the show. So I do believe it's going to be Brett Owens is going to be coming to the show, and he's going to be talking about stocks and bonds and how to invest and stuff. This is what we do on the show. You feel me? I don't just sit here and try to badmouth women on a regular basis. I just said that at the beginning of this because today's show was actually about Purge Day. That's what we were supposed to be talking about. Today was supposed to be talking about Purge Day, and if we really had 24 hours with no laws, like what would we really do that day? That's what today's show is about. So I didn't even start the show thinking that I'm going to be sitting over here talking trash about women all day. I was supposed to be sitting over here talking about 45 said that if there was one really hard hour that, you know, America would change their opinion about law enforcement. I don't agree. I believe that if you give us one really hard hour, we're either going to party hard that 1 hour, or it's going to be just like chaos mode on GTA 5. And I don't believe that with the type of Americans that I've seen in this country, that they will be able to get the country back under control after they tell this country that you don't have to abide by the laws for 24 hours. That's what I think, but that's not what I was thinking. So now Beast is going to say, okay, I'm female, married, 34, completely reasonable for completely responsible for all my money in our marriage. Grown our nest egg alone, retired at 57, husband retired at 55. Now, that was the relationship that I told you we should all strive for. Okay? That was the relationship that I told y'all we should all strive for. And that's one from, look at this, married for 34 years now. So they have been together for more than 34 years now. Most of us that are still dealing with the single relationship here right now in 2024 that are in our 30s, 40s, and going on 50s. we do not have that partner from 34 years ago. 34 years ago, I was a kid. Okay. And 34 years ago, we were in the 90s, which was the last half of the 70s and 80s, when the women and men had respect for one another. Look at them, 57 and 55. Okay. So these are people that were born in the 70s, when the mentality of men and women were not the mentality of today in 2024. And what I've said is that society's expectations have changed between both men and women. Dre, tell them something about it. Matter of fact, if you think I'm wrong, Dre, give us a man's opinion that says that I'm wrong about it. Now, she says, I would love to join that convo because it seems like every time I come in, it's a trash talk about women. It is not trash talk about women. It is not trash talk about women. You just don't want to hear anything about how women are not actually behaving on the equality expectation. And when I was actually talking about family earlier, when I was talking about Kamala Harris, I wasn't even trash talking women at that point. I said it, even in that scenario, why did she shift the topic from giving birth and having a nuclear family that was genetically related to one another, as opposed to her having the modern style capabilities to adopt and have a nuclear family that is not genetically related to one another and be pro-family, instead of her position of going from talking about family to being pro-women's rights. That's what I said. And that conversation snowballed into you believing that I'm just saying that I'm just trashing women. I'm not trash talking women. I said, why are women never in a scenario where they are promoting each other to support the whole family or support the men in the family to be better men? That's what I said. And why are the women not holding themselves to the same level of equality as men, where the women have the responsibility to take care of the men and the children, and the women say, let's get out there and take care of our man. Let's get out there and boost our man up and build our man up and help our man become more financially successful. And then I showed you, I started talking to you about the statistical data about how two low-income people can come together and still become a wealthy family. You don't even have to make 50,000. You can actually come together on 30,000 a piece. You can actually come together on 35,000 a piece if you invest your money wisely. And then when I started talking to you about the fact that the lower income families that come together, the lower income couples that come together, are fiscally irresponsible, wasting money on entertainment, whether it's entertaining the man or entertaining the woman's upkeep and the woman's desires, it doesn't matter. If two people come together where they're making 40, 50,000 a year, and you can live comfortably on 60,000, 68,000, you got two people together making 80, you're wasting 20,000 every year, is what I was saying. And then I also went back to say that women don't need to have such high expectations to say that a man by himself needs to bring in 100,000 a year. The man and the woman together should be able to make 100,000 a year, is what I said. So I wasn't bashing women and saying that women are trash. You just getting the idea that women are trash because I'm telling you that women are not behaving the way they should be behaving if they were expecting to be considered equal to a man. If men and women are supposed to be sizably equal based on capabilities, because I believe that a woman can do everything a man can do, if not more. And I was raised that way. I was raised that women are more driven and determined than men because men are distracted by sex. But that doesn't stop the fact that men sit on money more often than women. And that's truth. That's not a fictitious story. The women that claim that there is a wage gap, there isn't a wage gap. Men work longer hours. They stay at work more often than not. They're picking up extra shifts. Men have responsibilities, whether it's child support, alimony. They got to get out there and make more money. Men get dangerous jobs. Men get harder jobs. There are no men-only jobs. But if you as a woman were to go get on an oil refinery, you would become upper management inside of 6 months because they don't have enough women in that position. You'd be making 150,000 a year just because you're willing to get on a boat, go to this oil refinery, and almost get killed by a tidal wave for 30 days out of a year. And you would be making hundreds of thousands of dollars because they need a woman in management. Now, likewise, I can get on that same boat and go to that same oil refinery and probably make $85,000 a year, because I'm going to have to work on that job for 5 to 10 years before I get that same position. That's not saying women are trash. That's just saying that when a woman says, "Oh, well, there's a wage gap between men and women," no, there's a career choice difference between men and women. Men get the hardest jobs that pay the most money, the most physically strenuous jobs that pay the most money. We were taught in my generation as young boys, as young men, to get the hardest, dirtiest, nastiest job that nobody wants to do and do it better than anybody else, and that'll make you the backbone of that business. Because nobody else will do what you do, and nobody else can do what you do as good as you do what you do. You can make your own schedule and get you a little bit of authority and a little bit of respect out of that job. So men are taught from childhood to grind. Women aren't taught from childhood to grind. Now, that don't mean that women are trash. I never once said that women are trash. I just said that the mentality that women have to boost each other up and promote each other and give each other props, nowhere in there are women teaching each other to be a partner to their boyfriend, to be a partner to their husband. The way of men are expected to be husbands from the first date, women should behave as wives from the first date, because you don't make wives, you marry them. So if you weren't wife material before I married you, then why am I marrying you? Because women are not behaving as wives from the first date because they don't feel like they have to. That's not saying women are trash, but women are holding out with the expectation that men must deliver 100% of the way. That's not saying women are trash. That's just saying that the expectations are skewed dramatically, and it's unfavorable to men. And while it is skewed dramatically unfavorable to men, men are adapting to it, self-preservation, and women are not willing to change from these expectations. And even you are not even going to say, well, I understand that there are some women out there like that. You're not even willing to say that. Even if it's not you, even if it's not the 3 or 5 girls that you roll with, you're not even willing to say that there are enough of them out there that it has posed a problem to the men that are talking about that this is a problem. So B says, I picked him up in a bar 40 years ago. Do you see that? They've been together longer than I've been alive. She picked him up in a bar 40 years ago. She picked him up in a bar 40 years ago. 40 years ago, their mentality was different. Women have to go for jobs that use their brain. We can't compete in physical strength. Marriage is a team sport. You're in it together and always on the same team. Do you see the difference in mentality right there? That is what I'm talking about. That is what I talk about on this show on a regular basis. That when men find a woman of value, that is the mentality of a woman of value. And yes, women are going to have to get some stuff that is less strenuous than men, because they don't have the physical capacity to do some stuff that men can do. There are some tech jobs that women can get that they don't need to use physical strength and get paid just as much money as a man. But nowhere in there is there a wage gap. It's just women are choosing jobs that pay less money. And that's what we're talking about when women have higher expectations for the men. But the men do not have those higher expectations from women. They just want a partner that's going to cooperate with them, that's going to take the stress off of their plate at their house, so their house is not full of chaos. They just want to have somebody that they can start a family with. She doesn't have to have a job. She doesn't have to have an income. She doesn't have to have an inheritance of 401k. She doesn't have to have a trust fund. She could have 3 kids for 3 other baby daddies that don't pay child support. This man just wants a woman to respect him and love him and be there for him. And the women are upset with those expectations when you start talking about, well, cook and clean and do stuff around the house. So how is that me saying women are trash? Just because I'm pointing out the problem, if it sounds like women are trash, then that's because they behaving like trash, not because they are trash. So I never once said that women are trash. I'm just saying that there's some negative behavior out there that needs to be addressed. Or the people that fit that bill need to be excluded from the dating field the same way clubs have dress codes. And if you don't adhere to the dress code, you can't get in. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that the people that are qualified to be partners are trash. I'm saying that the people that aren't qualified to be partners, that are still single in the dating pool with people that are qualified to be partners, are interfering with the people who are qualified to be partners to find the right partner. Because good men come across bad women and get damaged. Damaged men come across good women and damage them. And then the damaged women and the damaged men get together, and then they start having damaged relationships. Toxicity all over the place. In order for you to avoid that toxicity, you got to remove yourself out of a toxic dating field. You have to eliminate yourself from the toxic dating field, heal from your past trauma, and then instead of getting back into that toxic dating field, recognize the points that I'm pointing out about what looks toxic and get away from that. Don't let that into your life. And then when you find somebody that's on your level, that's got the same mentality as LB's got today, that's the type of female that you want to say, okay, that's the person that I'm going to boost up with. Because it's not, well, man, you say that it's hard to have a convo via a chat. I'm putting words in your mouth. Well, look, I tell you what, every show, I tell y'all all the time, if y'all want to get in here and y'all want to talk, y'all got the opportunity. You got a camera and a microphone right there. You click the link, approve the camera, approve the mic, and you can say whatever you want to say on here, uncensored and unfiltered. I actually got you over there on TikTok, same way. You got the ability to invite in there and jump in and say what you got to say over there as well. People are free to talk on this podcast. This is an open forum, open-minded podcast. I am not closed off where I am assuming that I am the only person that's right. Statistical data shows that what I'm telling you is a fact, and I'm not going to tell you something that's not a fact. You don't have to agree with what I'm saying, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. But you said that you don't like when you come to the show and I'm talking about how women are trash. I'm telling you, I'm not saying that they're trash. I'm saying that the average woman in the dating field in 2024 that's making it hard for men to find good women, which is the reason why me and hundreds of other podcasts are talking about how the men are struggling to be respected, be appreciated, be valued, and find a valuable woman in the dating game, because the expectations of men have not changed, and there are no expectations in the society for women. There are none. And if men start setting standards, women start getting upset about that. That's where the soft guy era 2024 came from. Drizzle. When men started saying, nope, we're going to set the expectations that women have. We're going to give those expectations back to the women and have the women adhere to that. In that scenario, the women are getting upset and the women are getting frustrated. It doesn't have to be all of them. It could just be the ones that are doing it. The fact is that there are women that are doing it. So when you tell me that my information is my hypotheticals are incorrect, you're making it seem like there is no one in the U.S. population that behaves the way I'm talking about. But I can come off of 5 or 6 different podcasts off the top of my head that all talk about how this happens on a regular basis. Now she says it's the generalizations and sweeping notions about women that I can't stand. Man, how else can I put it in there? You're coming from a scenario where you agree with LBs. Yeah, I agree with LBs too. That's why me and LBs have lots of long-winded conversations on this podcast, 3, 4, 5 hours at a time. That's the reason why Red Void is in here today, because he comes in for these particular types of conversations and the other types of conversations that we have when we're talking about money. Like we were talking about trust last week on Tuesday. We were talking about C corporations last week on Monday. We were talking about startup businesses that you can do from home last week, Wednesday. We talk about ways that you can make money. We had a few months ago where we were talking about self-realization and self-preservation and emotional maturity and being able to prioritize yourself, getting away from procrastination. We've been doing a whole build yourself up thing for the past 6 months. It's just that we also talk about how in relationships that we actually have a dating coach that's going to be coming up onto the show that in the next week or so. And that's a woman, as a matter of fact. And it's not going to change the dynamic that it is still hard for people to find that right person. You're going to do a trial and error scenario. And while you're doing a trial and error, all I'm doing is pointing out there's certain behavior that you should probably look at and avoid. Now, I ain't never said, oh, women, y'all need to change. I ain't never said women are garbage. I'm just saying that there is some negative behavior out there that's making the dating game hard. And there is lack of cooperation in the couples that do exist in the low-income communities, because they are making, if 2 people are coming together in a $50,000 or $60,000 household, and you're making 70 and 80,000, you should be able to put 20,000 away because all your bills are paid and you still got 20 grand. So where's the 20 grand going? See what I'm saying? That's when I start talking about this. That's when I start talking about investing in stocks and bonds and mutualities. Well, that's when I start talking about how you need to find a partner that's going to save money. You should be able to hand your partner cash, and they should be able to take that money and flip it and make more extra money so that they can bring back some gas money for you. Notice, I didn't say that a man should give a woman money and she should be able to flip it and bring money. I said you, as an individual, should be able to give your partner cash as an individual, no gender there, and that partner should be able to take that money you gave them, flip that money, and bring you back extra money to put gas in your car. Now, whether you're a high-value woman looking for a high-value man or a high-value man looking for a high-value woman, if you're a moderate value woman looking for a moderate value man, if a moderate value man looking for a moderate value woman, this is the people that I'm reaching out to. Like, hey, your priorities need to change so that you're not grabbing the wrong person. Find somebody that is looking to work with you and grow and invest and boost. Because if two people come together with the right income, y'all can start at 35, 40,000 a person, 45,000 a person. And y'all could pocket a lot of that and be at $1.2 million inside of 5 to 7 years, 5 to 10 years. I was telling y'all a few months ago how you could take $100 at a time, $200 at a time, put them into checking accounts with that 5 to 7% interest rates up to $500. You could put up to $500 into a checking account and get 5% interest guaranteed, even with inflation, every year out of your bank. There's no limit to the number of bank accounts that you can do that with. It's just that each individual bank account has a cap of up to $500 in those bank accounts. You want to grab bank accounts that don't have usage requirements, that don't have service fees. Then you get more interest on it. There are over 8,000 financial institutions in this country. About 4,100 or 4,200 of them are banks. About 4,200, 4,300 of them are credit unions. You could get an account with each one of them. There are at least 2 accounts in this country right now, and all of them set up online banking. So you don't got to drive to each one of these banks. You can just sit on your cell phone, Google them, and then set up an account, wire transfer some money over there, which they're not going to charge you a fee for. It's going to be an ACH transaction, and transfer the money into that account. There are 2 banks right now, two credit unions right now. One has a 7.15% interest rate. One has a 7.25% interest rate. And you can put your money in there, put $500 in there, and leave it in those accounts. And then you have the other however many accounts that you. So every time you decide to go to the club, that $200 you spent at the club, you could have opened an account and put $200 into that account and just leave it there. Fastest way to have emergency funds and still be able to gain interest on those emergency funds. If something happens where you need to turn around and grab a stack of cash because of a short-term emergency, you would be able to snatch that money out of that liquidated assets. You'd be able to snatch that money out of your account quick. Matter of fact, another thing you could do, and I told you guys this on the show before. I said you could get you a little Clio account. Yeah, it's like $45 every 3 months. It's $15 a month. You could link all of those accounts to your Clio account. Then you don't even have to get on all of those sites and pull money out. You could just wire transfer each one of those to your Clio account and then use one debit card and go make a purchase, solve whatever problem that you got going on right now. Then when you get your money back, you can start putting money back into those accounts that you pulled the money out of. And that Clio account will help build your credit. This is the stuff that I tell people on this podcast. But we also talk about how the situation is skewed, and we got to recognize the negative in order for us to find a positive, because if everything was good, then there wouldn't be a bunch of single people in this country. We would not have a lot of men, because I can't say a large majority of men, because not everybody can afford a passport, but a lot of men that buy passports to go to other countries to go and find a woman because it's a problem over here. That's what it is. And she said, I truly like a quiet, peaceful night, and this is not helpful. I have a book and a puppy waiting for me. I'll try to tune in to a stream that has nothing to do with gender. Have a good night. Hey, you can do whatever you like. You can do whatever you like. I don't mind, because this podcast was about not only making money, not only health and fitness, not only making positive choices. It is also about us finding the right person so that we can live a greater later with a united front. And until we get that united front, we've got to call out those situations when the united front isn't the same. But today's show was supposed to be about us talking about a purge-like day where you have 24 hours where there were no laws. And the question was at the beginning of the show, what would you do in a country that had no laws for a day? And when you actually jumped in, Lollipop, I actually was talking about what happens if there's no laws. A convict gets out of jail. He had a sentence he was supposed to serve. He got out of jail on the no law day. Is he just free because he's not gonna? It wasn't a crime for him to break out of jail. So the next day when laws do apply again, do they put him back in jail, or do they just let him stay free because he got out during no law day? So I was actually, today's whole show wasn't even about gender inequality. Today's whole show was about Mr. 45 talking about how us having a lawless day is warranted in this country. That's what today's show is about. So when you actually can look, if you're on YouTube, you can actually look at the lineup of the different shows that what we're planning on talking about, because I actually have the shows usually booked up for the next 30 days. So if you don't want to come to the show on a day when we're talking about relationships, then you look at the show and you see Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're talking about relationships. And then you see on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're talking about money, politics, business and finance. We're talking about health and fitness. We're talking about strategies and ways to improve yourself and improve your life and improve your social functioning, your decision-making process. And sometimes it might lead to when somebody jumps on a podcast and start trying to be pro-women on a podcast that's saying, hey, uniformly speaking, you should be pro-family, pro-couple, pro-relationship, pro-togetherness, not just the women. And then you come on a male-driven podcast where 85% of the followership are dudes, and you're going to jump on a male podcast and say, I don't like the fact that you're pointing out stuff that make women look bad. Well, ma'am, I can sit here all day long and talk about the men that ain't shit. I already talked about Chris Brown. I already talked about Quavo. You want me to talk about Diddy and R. Kelly and Bill Cosby? I mean, I could talk about men that ain't shit. But that doesn't change the fact that if I'm going to talk about women of value deserving men of value, you have to first identify which men are not valuable. Now, if this whole podcast was helping women identify which men ain't shit, I would have 95% followership. My followership would probably double every month because women have no problem with coming to a podcast that is not saying anything negative about women. But as soon as I start pointing out that there are some women in this country that do not behave correctly, that their intentions are not favorable of a positive engagement, of a positive relationship, that there are women in this country that actually are selfish, that are financially irresponsible. Yeah, there are men that are like that too. But if I start talking about the women that are like that, then all of a sudden everybody's up in arms, or at least the women that are willing to talk on a podcast are up in arms. Some of them come on, they'll watch for 20, 30 minutes. And as soon as I start saying things that aren't favorable to women, they'll log off. You got a lot of men that'll hear me and they'll be like, yes, brother. And you see 3 other people have actually joined tag the show because they're like, yes, speak it, because it is fact. I'm not saying anything illogical or anything irrational. And I am not at any point in time setting up an unfavorable scenario that is biased towards a specific party. I am not setting up a scenario that says, well, I'm only going to give you the scenario that's favorable to men. No, I give you a scenario. As we talk about that scenario, we point out that half of the people are not favorable in that scenario. Then I say, well, let's switch roles. Now, since we've switched roles, it's still not right. But where one time the woman was mistreated in a situation, now the man's being mistreated, people get up in arms and they're like, oh, I don't want to hear that. But if I say, okay, well, let's flip the script and say, oh, well, women deserve to get a $10 an hour raise over men, that all women should get paid $10 an hour more than men, women would jump on a podcast and be like, fuck yeah, wage gap. That's not wage gap. We just pointed out that it's not necessarily a wage gap. It's just that women, based on their capabilities, choose less strenuous, less physically strenuous, and less dangerous jobs, which causes them to make less money. But I pointed out jobs. I did not point out jobs that only men could do and say, oh, well, if you get this job that you can make more money, but you're not physically capable of doing that job. I pointed out regular jobs like bus drivers, garbage truck drivers. That's not gender exclusive. Working at fast food restaurants. I named the names of restaurants that are hiring right now that'll pay you $55,000 to $60,000 a year, $65,000 a year. I talked about teachers. I talked about nurses. I'm talking about regular jobs where, depending on the job that you get in humanities, taking care of people in the health industry doesn't pay as much as working in a fast food restaurant. Just simply shifting your 3 to 4 year degree from working in a medical field to working in a restaurant, you can get a $20,000 a year pay increase. Now, you don't want to hear about gender inequality, but I mean, like, if women really wanted to make more money, you just go find you a better job. If men want to make more money, they go find them a better job. Did you know lawyers don't really make that much money? Lawyers have a highly prestigious job. Everybody needs a lawyer, but lawyers don't make that much money. You got lawyers that are getting paid $20 or $30 an hour, but they're getting $20 or $30 an hour at one client per hour. So they're working an 8 or 9 hour day with 8 or 9 clients a day, with 8 or 9 different clients every day, 5 days a week, which means that those lawyers are dealing with 40 to 50 clients a week to make that $70,000 a year job. That means that one lawyer could have upward of 700 clients to make that $70,000 a year job. So lawyers ain't making bank like that. Doctors got malpractice insurance that takes up almost 40% of their income, where they might be making $160,000 a year and $60,000 of it is going across their malpractice insurance, so that if the surgery doesn't work out right and somebody wants to sue, the insurance will pay for it. Yeah, he might still be pocketing $100,000 after that, but you got doctors that are making $160,000, $270,000 as surgeons, and these guys are, most of it's going towards insurance to protect them from if they fail. And then that's a very stressful job, because that job is productivity. You have to save more lives than you lose in order for you to keep your job. First time a surgery goes wrong when it should have gone right, you're fired. No matter how many years you've been doing this job. See what I'm saying? But there are higher paying jobs out there. So when we talk about these higher paying jobs, when we talk about ways to make money for you, when we talk about ways for people to come together and start building up and working together, just think about the fact that when you came to the show today, Lolly, I asked you about why do women not support the whole family in and of itself? And you said, well, you shouldn't like the fact that the woman didn't. Well, she didn't say it like that. I'm wording it like that. She said that so hypothetically putting words in her mouth, she said that I shouldn't feel ill about the fact that Camilla wasn't talking about, pro family instead of talking about pro women, because her campaign is about women's choice and being pro women and being pro democratic. But I said, if you're in a conversation about family, why is your mentality not about the whole family? Why is it only about the women boosting up the women? See what I'm saying? And why are all women, or majority of women, with that mentality? Why have I yet to hear a woman even come on this podcast and say, you know what, you're right. There are women in this country right now, even if they're the low income, low class, low educated version, that do not have it together. They weren't taught by the right source, and they're not a team player. And they need to get their stuff together. They're making the rest of us look bad. A woman won't even jump on a podcast and even say that. Women will not accept responsibility or accountability for what they know exists when it comes down to saying that there is something negative involved with women's behavior. But they have no problem with jumping in on everything else. If I talk about how bad men are, if I sat here and talked about and I was sitting over here talking about a man's decision to have a lawless country for 24 hours. And that's why a lot of people jumped in. A lot of people jumped in because they thought we were going to be sitting here talking about a lawless country today. And I thought we were going to be talking about a lawless country today. and she brought that up. And I just have to point it out. Like, no, it's we were talking about the lawless country, but since we were talking about the right wings, I had to talk about the left wings. And while I'm talking about the left and the right wings, we end up in this gender inequality conversation. But my decision to talk about this, that, and everything in between means that I'm going to talk about the left side of the room, the right side of the room, and everything in between the two. So if we end up talking about gender inequality because Lollipop comes in here trying to be defensive towards women, then yeah, we're going to talk about gender inequality. But if Lollipop jumps into the room and she decides to talk about the topic at hand, then we can talk about the topic at hand. Lollipop could have told me some stuff that legally that she would have done that is probably a little bit less than ethical, like double park in a fire lane or the fire HOA or something like that, something that you don't have to worry about getting arrested for, or at least agree that, yeah, there's probably some things that I might do that's probably not authorized by the current laws that exist that I would definitely attempt in a country that did not have any penalties for doing stuff that is not acceptable, like smoking a blunt in front of a cop, whatever. Like, that was the topic of the day. But she jumped in and tried to be pro-women. And every time she comes in, she's pro-women. And I have no problem with women coming to the podcast being pro-women. But when the woman comes to the podcast being pro-women, I then say, well, hold on. Pro-women all day long. I believe that women are just as good, if not better, than men, because men are distracted by sex. So a man will be the CEO of a company and get fired for sexual harassment because he doesn't know how to leave a woman alone when she says she wasn't interested. Women will focus on their careers to the magnitude that they forget that they got a boyfriend and a husband at home. They're driven. So I got nothing but positive things to say about women, but I also can point out that there are some women that don't have their priorities in order. And when I start pointing out those inconsistent priorities, that's when some of the women that actually might fit this bill get offended and either complain during the podcast, during the chat, or log off while we're sitting here having a conversation. But look at LBs. When you think about careers, you have to think about if the job would be around your when you're 50 or 65. Look at AC, plumbing, electricity. This won't go away, and they are gender neutral. You're right. And guess what else is out there that's gender neutral? Technology. You've got coders, because most of the manual labor jobs are going to be replaced by robots. Look at Elon Musk. Just put all them robots out there on the block. They're going to have the Elon's Tesla's robot that was just out last week is ready to replace bartenders already, mixing drinks and all this stuff. Okay, so somebody pays 30 grand for a robot bartender. That's 30 grand once in the lifetime of that machine, plus maintenance, which is cheaper than 30 plus grand a year for the bartender, plus the workman's comp insurance. And that robot can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when we start talking about jobs that people can do that'll still be here in 50 or 65 years, building machines until machines start building themselves, coding machines, reprogramming machines, software developers, teachers, because somebody's got to teach people. Until machines start teaching people, somebody's got to teach people so that people can know what to do. You got real estate is always going to be a thing. As long as there's something for sale, a salesperson has a job. As long as there's something for sale, somebody's going to buy it. So as long as you can either get paid by the hour to sell it or get commission for every sale that you make, salespeople always have a job. Salesman used to be a job title back in the day before they started giving it fancy names. As long as there's something worth selling, there's always going to be a salesperson. As long as two people don't agree, there's always going to be a lawyer. But when you start thinking about those jobs, as long as people are hungry, there's always going to be a cook job. There's always going to be a server job. As long as something needs to be cleaned up, there's always going to be a maid job. As long as you got people who have kids that they can't afford to take care of, or not afford, they don't have time or don't want to invest time in taking care of them, there's always going to be a nanny there. There's always going to be a babysitter. If you got people who have pets who don't have the motivation to walk those pets, you got dog walkers. You got pet sitting companies. And these are some of the places that I was talking to you guys about last Wednesday as jobs that you can start up. Photographers. People want to look at stuff. They don't like to read things. You can do an autobiography. You can do an audio biography. where instead of you being a blogger that blogs by typing up stories and putting them up on the internet for people to read, you can type up the story, put it into an audio file, and then put images behind it and put it up on YouTube and make a bunch of money off of it. You could put it up on a blog site where people will listen to it because they don't have the energy to sit there and read, and they can listen to what you have to say instead of reading what you have to say. And it could be a little 5-minute story. A 5-minute read might be a 3-minute talk, and that's what I'm saying. LBs, I'm pro family and pro relationship. You have to be a team. And that's exactly what I'm saying. Beast, from you picked your partner 40 years ago, and 40 years ago, the dating game was team players. 40 years ago. Today, the dating game is not team players. The dating games is open relationships, everyone for themselves, 50-50, so that I don't have to pay more than you. There is no partnership. There's no partnership, because even in a relationship is not 50-50, because there's going to be stuff that I can do that you can't do. And there's going to be stuff that you can do that I can't do, under the guise that women and men might not be equal because they have different qualifications and different qualities, but she's going to do stuff to benefit him and he's going to do stuff to benefit her. That is the reciprocal laws of alchemy that I'm talking about with my utilitarianism, my uniformity. But I am not one of those red pill podcasts that says that a woman deserves to be under the foot of a man, that men are supposed to always boss women around and everything like that. But when I start saying that a woman has to be a partner to a man by figuring out what that man wants, which means that you got to follow instructions, because he's going to tell you what he wants. He's going to tell you what he needs. He's going to tell you what makes him happy. He's going to tell you what's not getting done so that you can figure out what you want to do about getting that stuff done. If you know what he's missing in his life because he told you, if you do what's missing in his life so that it's no longer missing in his life, you are actually doing what he needs. But because he told you to do it, women don't really, not all women, some women, it triggers them because they don't want to be told what to do. And that's where the gender inequality, and that's when women start saying, oh, you're talking to me about how women are trash. No, I'm not talking about how women are trash. I'm saying that why does it not make sense to you that if a man wants to satisfy a woman, he goes to this woman from the first day that he meets her and asks her, what does she want? What does she need? What does she like? Are you okay? What can I get you? What can I do for you? How can I help you? What can I do to make your life better? All of these questions that a man is asking a woman that's going to respond with instructions. Okay. Now, women are okay with that part. Now, here I go again. Flip the script. Now, if a man tells you all of those things, oh, he's misogynistic. He shouldn't tell me what he should, take me as I am. And I don't understand why is that the mentality? Why can you not do what your boyfriend or your husband tell you to do? It's a within reason expectation, because no man is telling a woman to get on all fours and be a step stool. No man is telling a woman to feed him grapes and fan him with a giant leaf. We're just talking about saying, hey, the same way we would talk to a personal assistant. I gotta go to this doctor's appointment, but I gotta go pay for the mortgage at the same time. I can't do both. Can you take care of the mortgage so I can go get my physical? You feel me? But it's not the message that I'm telling you. It's the delivery. Because when I say that a man needs a woman that does what she's told to do to benefit the man, they're sitting over here thinking, oh, he's going to be my dictator, and that's not what I'm saying. But that's what they're receiving. I'm saying that a good partner has to know what their partner needs. And in order to know what your partner needs, you have to observe and you have to listen. And then you have to follow instructions. So a woman that wants a good man, you have to see what kind of potential he has, what kind of character he has, what kind of financial responsibility that he has. So how much money he has is irrelevant. Because if he's wasteful, you're always going to be broke, no matter how rich he is. But if he's good about his money, that means he'll be good about your money. If he's got good financial advice to give you, you can take it. You don't have to, because it's your money. But if he knows, hey, I'm about to put my money over here and I'm going to be getting 80% interest on this money. Oh, bet. Put my money on it too. That way we're both getting 80%. That's when the a hierarchy of divorce requires that half of everything gets split, because she put her income into it too. But when I start pointing out, there are some out there that marry for the sake of divorce so that they could take half of the assets. They went into the relationship with nothing. They stay in a relationship long enough to get divorced and get half of whatever is in the relationship. There's only one woman in the history of this country that made herself a million or billionaire without actually getting her money from divorce first. All the rest of the women made their financial success after divorce because of the divorce. They learned how to capitalize on it after the divorce, but they got their millions from divorce. How many men became a millionaire because they divorced their wife? None. How many men gained a business because they divorced their wife? None. How many men gained a house and a car and a dog at the very least because they divorced their wife? None. That's what I talk about. So since the men are going to be sacrificing in the situation, I'm like, bro, you got to know what you're getting. You got to know what you're getting yourself into. We want to talk more about making money. But as you make more money, you're going to have more. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. The more money you make, the more people are going to be sitting there wanting money from you. And the more people that are trying to get money from you, the more people you are going to be saying, oh, I don't got it. Or you're going to be the kind of person say, well, I kind of feel like I should give it to them. They are going through some hard times. And you got to get rid of those people out of your life. So when I tell y'all, even that, don't keep people in your life, friends, family, or loved ones that are leeching off of you. You keep people that they're going to put into you the way you put into them. That's non-gender bias. That is just straight up talking about how you got to make sure that the people that you're investing in are investing into you. And when I come from that, I come from a uniform perspective throughout this podcast. For the last year, I have come from a uniform perspective. It's just that some women just don't like hearing the truth. You don't like hearing the truth. But if you have some statistical data that showed me that I was wrong, then you can make me eat my words. But while we are live 7 days a week, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 5 Pacific, and we're on the show for about an hour to 3 hours, no one ever comes to this podcast with any data that shows me that I'm wrong. The only time that somebody comes up here is to just say that you don't agree with my delivery. And what am I supposed to tell you about that? You don't have to agree with my delivery. But just like she said, oh, it's hard to follow me with the because of the speed that I talk and the way that she comments on the thing, it's hard for her to follow me in the chat. Well, you got the freedom to click the mic, approve the camera, jump up on the podcast right next to me, and I give you the whole floor. You can say what you got to say in real time. But when I put that challenge out there and say, argue your position with me, not going to do it. They never do it. So she says, B says, okay, I know several men that made their current situation off their divorce. I have several very wealthy friends that had to give their exes hundreds of thousands. I don't know any. So I tell you what, I'm going to go the extra mile for you, Beast. I'm going to take what you just said. I'm going to go and I'm going to grab me enough statistical data to show that, at least from what I've observed, that men are the sacrificial lamb. Now, I know that in the last 3 to 4 years, it started becoming more gender neutral with divorce, where if the woman is making more money than the man, then the woman does have to pay for the divorce. But the majority of relationships where the man and the woman are both making about the same, or the man is making more money than the woman, the man always has to pay. There's never been a situation where the woman comes into the relationship and she's making the same amount of money as the man or less, and then she's got to pay the man. And there's very few relationships where women get into a relationship where she's making more than a man. And I can pull up those statistical data also to support that as well. Because I mean, truth. I'm not trying to say that women are just out there trying to get after the man's money. Inherently, women are wanting to be taken care of by the men that they select. And when they select a man, the way a man will hire another man to be his bodyguard, men listen to their bodyguard. When a bodyguard tells a man to sit down or be quiet or come here, or we can't stay here, we got to go, or, don't leave. We pay this man to tell us what to do, and we do what we're told. But when I then say, as a man, that a woman should be able to listen to the man that she selects so that he can keep her safe, modern day women in 2024 are not going to agree with that. They're going to feel like, oh, I'm grown, I should be able to go and do whatever I want to go and do. But if Donald Trump said, oh, no, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, when the CIA said get down, he would have got shot. The people that are supposed to protect you can't protect you if you don't follow instructions. She said that's correct. And see, that's one thing that you could do that Lollipop couldn't do. Specifically, in general, that is the truth. And that's what I bring to the. I don't feed y'all bullshit on this podcast. I'm not trying to start a conspiracy. I refuse to tiptoe around a hypothetical conspiracy that doesn't exist. This is stuff that really does exist. But I also, before I started talking about how divorce sucks, I talked about how the reason why divorce sucks is because the laws haven't changed, because over 150 years ago, women didn't have that income, and the women had to depend on the man. And then the men wasn't behaving correctly and leaving the women, abandoning the marriages and getting divorced or being abusive. And the women had to get a divorce. And when the women got divorced because they gave their entire adulthood to the man, they had no skills. So when they got divorced, they needed a standard of living to take care of themselves. And because the man didn't do right in the relationship, the women got taken care of by the man that they had to divorce because the man didn't do right. That was originally where divorce came from. And that came from back when women were forced into marriage from arranged marriages, when women didn't have a say, where the man used to go to the woman's parents and ask for the woman's hand in marriage by having an exchange with a dowry. Back in those days, if the man convinced the father, the woman married the man whether she wanted to or not. So in return, if the marriage didn't work out, she got half of his estate because he chose her and fucked it up. That's what it was 150 years ago. Then back in the 1950s, when women could divorce a man without having a legitimate reason, if you're just unsatisfied, you can just divorce him. He cannot be doing nothing wrong. At first, he had to either be cheating on you, abandon a marriage where he left and never came back, which is why people are separated for 12 months before they can get divorced without an issue, or he was abusive. Those were the three reasons that had to happen for a woman to get married before. But then in 1950, women started getting divorced because of the laws being passed, and she didn't need a reason to get a divorce. She could just divorce him because she doesn't want to be with him anymore. That spiraled into what we have today. So because the laws were originally created to protect the women from not having an income going into this relationship, dedicating herself to cooking and cleaning and staying at home with the man, and then leaving the marriage with no skills, no job training, and no income, to actually having a subsidized income and having the capabilities of trying to find some kind of a hustle to maintain her standard of living after the divorce. That's where the alimony came from. And then child support was because the country usually gave the children to the women because the men were primarily at work or off at war dying. So the kids were with the women, not because the women are better parents, because the women were at home with the kids. So then the woman would get alimony. And if she had the kids, she also got child support. But now here in 2024, you got women who will have the child with the father and still get child support from the father, even though the father got the kids, and she getting alimony. I'm not saying it's right. She just had a damn good lawyer, but that's how the laws are written. The laws are not biased towards people. It's just that back when that law was created, this society was not favorable to the woman. Society has become favorable to the woman, but the law has not changed. And that law now makes favoritism towards the woman because there are no laws that favor the men. Here's one. You know that it's a law that still exists right now in this country that women can't fall asleep at a hair salon. They go to jail for it. It's not enforced, but it's a law that still exists. That's like the only anti-woman law that exists. Everything else, every law that is out there right now, and that one probably was because of a safety or health issue when they made that law. And not too many people even go to the salon and take a nap these days. But That's where the laws came from, because something happened back then often enough for that to become a law. So because the laws were in favor of bringing equality to women, and because the laws back in the day were designed to bring a little bit more balance to things, because those laws have not been amended in 2024, a woman with no job can marry a man that makes $200,000 a year and stay with him for 3 to 6 months, and then divorce that man and get a $50,000 a year alimony and another $10,000 or $20,000 a year with the child support, and get the house because she's got the kid, and get the car because she's got to take the kid to school and take the kid to the doctor. That man has to lose his house, lose his car, and now has to pay about $70,000 out of his $200,000 a year to this woman and start over. He has to now go and get himself an apartment, buy himself a new car, and now he's paying for 2 houses, 2 cars, and her standard of living. That's where society is today. Not because I want to point out how women ain't shit. I'm just saying it ain't right. It ain't balanced. And because I pointed out that it ain't right and that it ain't balanced, we got some salty people coming up in here telling me that they don't like my delivery. Well, that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about this, that, and everything in between. You don't have to agree with me. I don't have to agree with you. But by all means, prove me wrong. Show me better than you can tell. So, with that being said, you're gonna see it because I'm talking to him later today. When I should try to set it up for next week, Wednesday, that he's gonna be here. I might talk about his book either tomorrow or Wednesday when we're talking about money and finance. Talk about what's in this book. And then I'm going to bring the author of this book to the show, and we're going to be talking about money next week. It isn't right. Exactly. And so when I call out what's not right, and without having to start back over the gender inequality topic, it doesn't matter what topic I talk about. If I'm talking about something that's not right, just on a general census that we have a poor economy in this country, not because the rich are getting richer and the rich are keeping the poor down. It's because the 99% of the country that is poor doesn't spend their money wisely. No gender aside, if 2 people can come together and make $20,000 over their standard of living, why do we not have more middle-class families? I asked that question. You know what I'm saying? And this is the type of stuff that says, hey, if you are individually trying to make you some money, and this guy's going off of stocks and bonds and holdings and stuff to that effect. I was talking about holding companies last week or the week before that, and how to set those up and how to build those up so that you could put your money in a place where if you get sued, your money won't get affected by that. I was talking to you guys before about not registering your vehicle to yourself, register your vehicle to your business. Yeah, depending on what insurance company you have, you might have some pretty decent commercial car insurance. Unless you register your vehicle as a vehicle that's not a transportation service, then you won't have a high-ass insurance on it. But if you register your vehicle for a business instead of registering your vehicle for yourself, guess what? Since the police can ride around now with cameras on their squad cars taking pictures of your license plate, if the vehicle's not registered to you, they don't know where the fuck you live. Okay? They pull the car over. It's a company car. And funny, police treat you with more respect if you're driving a company car, even if you're doing a traffic violation. Make it seem like you're an employee of the company, not the owner of the company, where the boss will be mad if he finds out that you're not driving correctly in this car. And the cop will warn you and be like, hey, you better tighten up. I actually had a commercial vehicle where I put a call this number, how's my driving, on the back of the car. They would call that number instead of calling the police and calling this person, call that number and bitch about the driving. But it's me. I don't give a fuck. But they got it off their chest. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to fire that asshole. Now they're satisfied. I don't have anybody looking for my vehicle. Nobody's complaining. The conversation stopped right there. Just because they were able to vent. Because I put, how's my driving? Call this number. And that was it. it solved all my problems. But I'm telling you, like, these are things that we could do. But commercial vehicle, you buy it for yourself, you buy it for the business, it's a tax write-off, you drive it. I tell you guys, when you put a vehicle in your name, you put a vehicle in your business name, you have one business that holds your cars, you have another business that does stuff, so that when that business gets sued, or if that business tanks, so one business holds your debt, the other business holds your assets, the holding company holds assets that's not vehicles. Put all this shit into trust, where the trust can be controlled by other people. Have the trust owned by somebody, where the second trust, if the primary trust dies, the secondary trust takes over and becomes a primary trust, so that you don't got to deal with probate, you don't got to deal with inheritance tax, you don't got to deal with all this other stuff. I tell y'all about these things on a regular basis. I tell y'all that you know, if you're building C corporations, you get the 10% tax write-off for charities. If you build a charity, you can actually donate money to your 501c3 and get a tax write-off for it. You can do some charitable stuff, but then you're doing charitable stuff in the public eye, and people will donate you money for doing charitable stuff. The same way the athletes will go out there and spend $250,000 to feed the homeless, instead of building a $60,000 homeless shelter or $150,000 homeless shelter to house the homeless and solve the fucking problem instead of treating the symptoms. They'll go out there and spend $250,000 to get publicity to feed like 500,000 people, but they're not solving the problem. But they can use that $250,000 as a tax write-off. Exactly. Avoid probate. So you these are things that we talk about doing. But if you're in a relationship where your partner's wasting all the money, it's hard for you to do this stuff. If you don't have a partner, and it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. It doesn't matter if she's spending her money on hair and makeup, or if he's spending all his money on video games and gambling. It doesn't matter if he's spending all his money on souping up cars, or if she's spending all her money on Prada bags and red bottom shoes. What matters is that if you as an individual want to build your wealth, you could take your money and you can put your money in places where it's making between 8 and 15% interest. If you build up LLCs, you can have limited liability companies where you can't get sued for all of your assets. If you put your assets in C corporations, your assets are going to get tax deductions. You put that stuff into trust. Your trusts are going to have different tax lines. Your trust is going to pay taxes. You're not going to pay taxes, but your trust has a different level of taxes that it has to pay than you do. You have higher taxes as an individual than what your trust has. You have higher taxes as an individual than a C corporation. You have higher taxes as an individual than a trust. A C corporation has a maximum of 20%, with a 10% being put towards charity, and the other 10% can be written off on expenses. Next year, when we have the 15% and the 30% in 2025, you're not going to have the city and state tax deduction, but the business will have city and state tax deduction. Individuals, W-2 workers, are not going to have city and state tax deductions. So when I tell you guys, like, hey, you should be putting your money in different places, you should be trying to build these businesses, that's when, hey, it's good talking to you. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And I'm going to take a look at the calendar. I'm going to remind you, if you pop back in later this week, that I'm going to try to set it up for next week, Wednesday, that I'm going to have the author of this book try to come up onto the show. And we're going to spend at least an hour talking about business and finance and money and talking about this book. So just to get him on the show next week, Wednesday, I want you to make sure that you come here and get as much information as possible, because that whole show, all we're talking about is money. And then I think this week we're supposed to be talking about taxes. We got a CPA coming up this week, Wednesday, but I got to confirm it. And that's why I haven't listed that show on this week's calendar yet. But if I don't get the CPA up this week, Wednesday, 2 weeks from now on Wednesday, I'll have the CPA up there. So we're going to be talking about money and how to make money for you. We're going to be talking about ways that you can save money. But just like I was telling Lollipop earlier today, that you could just take your money $200 to $500 at a time and put it in places where your money can make money over a long period of time. It's always a long game. It's not a quick fix. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not something that you're going to put your money down today and you have millions of dollars tomorrow. But if you as an individual are putting your money in the right spot to build wealth, you don't want your partner, you don't want the person that you don't know the last name of to know what your portfolio looks like so that they can select you as a partner. You want that person to select you as a partner because you have good character. You want to be able to analyze this partner to be able to see if this partner is valuable to you because this partner should be able to aid you in expanding your portfolio. If this partner is not aiding you in expanding your portfolio, then this partner is not beneficial to you. And they don't have to aid you in expanding your portfolio by giving you money towards your portfolio. They should be aiding your portfolio by not costing you money, by aiding you as a helper, where they could be written off as an employee on the business because they're helping you take care of the business. That they could be aiding you in ways to make you successful. And if they're not aiding you in ways to make you be more successful, then they're not valuable to you. And that's what I was talking about earlier today. So while she didn't like it, but she's been coming to the podcast for like 3 months. And every time we come, because today we were supposed to be talking about a purge day, and not one person came up here and said, well, if this was a purge, I would have me some new kicks. I would have me a new bed set. I would get squatters' rights on a new house. Nobody's saying stuff like that. But when they came to the podcast, they want to talk about gender inequality. Because pro women. Women were fantastic back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It started changing in the 80s. It started going downhill in the 90s. By 2010, cash app them some money. It went from Destiny's Child singing "Can You Pay My Bills" to he ain't broke. I mean, he broke if he ain't got it. It went from "Can you pay my bills" to "It ain't tricking if you got it" to, he broke. He broke if he ain't willing to pay for it. If he ain't got it to give, or if he ain't willing to pay for it, he broke. And you don't want nobody broke. And I'm like, man, that ain't the way. That's not the way we're supposed to treat each other. That's not. Notice I didn't say that. That's not the way that a man is supposed to be treated. Because it's true. That's not the way a man is supposed to be treated. I just said that's not the way we're supposed to treat each other. So with that being said, I'm gonna wrap things up today. I'm gonna go ahead and sign out of TikTok first because we got that really nifty backdrop, and I don't want to have to deal with the way TikTok be trying to hold back on my viewership. So I'm going to sign out on TikTok first. So ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking y'all to make it make sense. So ladies, make it make sense. And Red, I really appreciate you coming to the show, bud. I mean, I told you that we was going to do it. Oh, we had a couple people come up here, and I know that person. See, I recognize faces, yo. I recognize faces. They trying it. Yeah. So I just one of the things when I sign out of TikTok, I'm able to look at the viewers, and I'm able to see the faces of the people who were talking on my show, and I can sit back and I can say, hey, I know that person. I know that photo. That person's coming back. But yeah, Red, I want you to know about this, because the stocks and stuff, this is something that you can do in your country. The stock market is a little bit different in Romania than what it is in the United States. But these methods can be used in your country, just at different values. I can't say that all the laws are the same. But I can say that you can cross-reference the information that I'm giving you and then apply it in your country. To even if you take a little bit of money at a time here and there and put it away, even though I know you got to take care of family and everything like that, you're able to build up wealth. And then when your girlfriend comes back out of college, y'all can work together as a team and be like LBs and be able to build up your wealth together, where you guys go from making ends meet to having extra money on the sidelines. And you could potentially use that extra money to go on vacations later on. But since you guys are in your 20s, if you guys set a 20-year plan and y'all actually try to stay together for that 20 years, that, inside of 10 to 20 years, depending on how much y'all put away, y'all will be millionaires. And you would own your own houses. You would own all your own cars and stuff. And y'all would have plenty of time and space and room. If y'all would have had 1 or 2 kids along the way to put the kids through college, they'd be grown and going on about their day, and y'all still would have millions in the bank, where in y'all late 40s, early 50s, y'all would be able to quit working and be able to travel the world and live off the interest of the money. That's what this book is going to be talking about, how to live off of the 8% of interest that your principal makes, where your money is still making money for you and you're not touching the principal. as opposed to when you get your paycheck, you spend your whole paycheck and then you got to wait till you get more money. I'm trying to find ways to help myself as well as help y'all put money in the bank where that money is making money for you all the time, and you're just using the interest to take care of business. And it's better when you put the money in there at first to leave it in there and let the interest become the new principal, so that you have a larger quantity of interest coming back off of the principal for the first few years. And then down the line, when you start taking the money out, you're making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year off of interest of your money, where you don't have to work if you have a $50,000, $75,000 lifestyle, and you're bringing in that $50,000 to $75,000 income. So, you know, I really believe that this show, when we do air the show, is going to be a good show for you guys. You guys are going to love it. You guys are going to learn from it, and we're going to boost ourselves up, and we're gonna make it make sense. Now, up until we make it make sense, you know, I'm going to be sitting over here looking at these females that are sitting over here talking to me reckless, and I'm going to let them know, hey, tighten up. Because statistics show that generally speaking, the men get the short end of the stick. So until somebody proves me wrong, I'm going to keep talking that talk. Because one of the better things about probate is that if you put your houses, your cars, and your all your assets into a business, and you got a prenup that says that she doesn't have control over the trust, or the houses and cars and everything that's in the trust, that's in the business, she has no access to none of that. When you get divorced, everything over here isn't part of the divorce. You're not going to separate the business in a divorce because you got the prenup. And you might have to get 2 or 3 prenups to make sure that it's locked tight, that she doesn't get nothing from here, she doesn't get nothing from up here, she doesn't get nothing from nowhere. Y'all going to split the stuff that you got in the house. If it's going to be tables and chairs and shit, that's the best that she's going to get, because you don't own nothing. The business owns everything. And that's when divorce is in your favor. But with that being said, I'm going to see you tomorrow night, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 5 Pacific. The internet's doing a little bit better. It's still garbage. I actually got it down to 2.4 gigahertz, so it's really slow speed. I've got like 10 to 12 upload when I used to have 40 to 50 upload speed. So it is a little bit slower. So the pixelation is not that good. But at least we didn't have any interruptions today. We didn't have a loss of signal today. So it's a tad bit improved. And I didn't have to disconnect and reconnect, and I didn't have to hotspot from the cell phone. So the internet is a little bit better with the Snapdragon software that is in the processor chip, that is increasing the processing speeds of the router for the Inseego FX3100 router that I'm using from T-Mobile to power the podcast. So I appreciate you guys coming to This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night.